Welcome to the Restorative Longevity Podcast, where we share how to increase your quality of life while also increasing your longevity. Yes, you heard that right. We refuse to believe that as we get older, our quality of life naturally declines. And that's exactly what you're going to hear on this podcast. How to defy the odds with simple, effective strategies that anyone can implement into their daily routine. From holistic health practices to time-tested wisdom, we're here to help you thrive, not just survive. Now let's welcome our host, Jimmy Yen, also known as the Acu-Sensei. Jimmy is a licensed acupuncturist, herbalist, nutritionist, and restorative longevity expert dedicated to guiding you on your journey to vibrant health and lasting wellness.
Topic of today is fats that make you dumber. So if you're like me, and I'm going to assume that you are like me, you don't want to become dumber, you want to become smarter, right? Well, there's certain fats in your diet, there's certain fats that you may be eating that are making you dumber. And it's just weird. When I say the word dumber, I'm just thinking of that movie, Dumb and Dumber. And so if you want to become dumb and dumber, then you want to continue to eat these fats. But if you don't, and you want to actually become smarter, then you want to avoid these fats. That's what we're going to talk about today, right? So the point of the podcast today is the fats that make you dumber are saturated fats and trans fats. You do not need to eat any of these. You don't even need to try to eat any of these. These are so ingrained, especially here in the US. They have infiltrated our food, our restaurants. Everywhere you go, there's saturated fats and trans fats. So you don't even need to try, and you are already eating this. You actually need to try hard not to eat this. And you still won't be perfect because it is, as I'm going to go through today, it is so saturated. No pun intended, it's saturated in our culture here in the US and in the food industry, right? So fats that make you dumber. I already kind of gave it to you. So let's just kind of do a brief review. Saturated fats. These are the bad fats. Saturated fats and trans fats. The bad, the ugly. The bad fats are saturated fats. The ugly are trans fats, right? So let's just do a review about saturated fats, right? Saturated fats are not essential fats. Okay, let me repeat that. Saturated fats are not essential. So remember, if you've been following me on these podcasts, and go back, and if you need a refresher, you can go back and watch it. I'm taking this step by step because there's so much information, and so it's easy to get overwhelmed. And this is the reason why people get overwhelmed, because most podcasts, they just flood you with information here, there. They talk about all fats in one episode, and they jump around, and it's just so confusing to follow, right? And so that's why I'm taking it very step by step, one fat at a time almost, right? And I'm going deep dive into just one specific fat, and I'm telling you why it's either good for you, it's going to make you smarter, make you more intelligent, or it's going to be terrible for you. Like today, we're talking about everything that's going to be terrible for you. It's going to make you dumber, right? It's going to make you lose your mind, literally lose your mind. So go back into the episode where I talked about essential and non-essential fats. Non-essential fats are fats your brain's got it covered. Your brain either produces it or makes it, right? So it doesn't need your help. It doesn't need your help anymore, right? And those are called non-essential fats. Saturated fats and trans fats are non-essential fats. Your brain doesn't need more of it. It either produces it, right? By itself, or it's done. It doesn't need it anymore. Saturated fats is one of those. Your brain doesn't, after you pass your puberty, your brain doesn't need more saturated fats in your brain, okay? Not talking about the rest of your body, just talking about your brain, right? Because this is an episode about getting smarter, not dumber. Essential fats, just a review. Essential fats are polyunsaturated fats, unsaturated fats, monounsaturated fats. Those are essential. Your brain can't make them, or makes very little of them, and needs it from your diet. So your brain does not need saturated fats, period, right? So let's go over some of the research. I know some of y'all like research. I love research, but I don't put all my eggs in one basket on research. Not to get on a side note, but recently the ABC News reported that the FDA found just are removing chemical ingredient in cold medicine that they thought phenylephrine or something like that, that they thought was good for nasal decongestant, and now the latest research shows that it doesn't. But here's the thing: in 2007, or they found that the research back then said it did, right? And now, fast forward 2024, the research now says it doesn't. What is my point? Again, I love research, but research changes, right? 2007, they said this chemical compound was good with nasal to help as a decongestant. Now, fast forward to 2024, new research shows it doesn't, right? And so research, for those of y'all who are arguing based off of research, I'm sorry to give you this news, but you're only accurate as right now, but you don't know if you are truly accurate or not. So to put all your eggs in one basket and to argue with someone to say, oh, research shows this, therefore I'm right. Well, you may not be right, right? And I may not be right. So this is not about being right or wrong, this podcast. This podcast is about how to get you smarter, restorative longevity, how to help you live a longer quality of life and get smarter as you grow old, not get dumber, right? So coming back to the podcast now. If you do have a question, type it in the live chat. I've got the live chat opened. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Get your friends and family subscribed. I'm going through this restorative longevity information step by step. Each podcast episode is talking about a specific ingredient to restorative longevity. So you want to go back and watch. Saturated fats. High levels of saturated fats. What have they found, right? There's a negative impact on your mental capacities. That's what I said. These bad fats make you stupider, right? And they increase your risk of dementia. You're losing your mind. Dementia, you're losing your mind, right? In addition to these saturated fats, accelerating you losing your mind, they also cause inflammation throughout your entire body. So again, no benefit to you. You need to stop eating saturated fats. Okay, again, it is non-essential, right? It's a non-essential fat. So what happens when you have inflammation in your whole body? Well, that can end up causing decrease in oxygen flow to your brain. Oxygen is the number one nutrient every cell in your body needs. Now, especially your brain, right? You take out oxygen from your brain, it's dead, right? So if you increase your saturated fats, that has a high risk of decreasing the oxygen flow to your brain. So if your brain doesn't get oxygen, it's going to start dying. Your cells are going to start dying. Your neurons are going to start dying. Your nerve cells, right? And so that's how you get stupider, right? Next, the increase in risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes. So when you increase your saturated fats, if you eat a lot of saturated fats, you are increasing your risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes, right? Which in turn increases your risk of dementia, because some people have said dementia, Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes. Type 3 diabetes, right? So you increase your saturated fat, you increase your risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes. So again, there is zero benefit. Zero benefit. I just want to stress this out. There's zero benefit of you eating saturated fats, right? There was a study, for those of y'all who like studies, over 800 elderly people. So this study was 800 elderly people consistently ate the most saturated fat, were 4 times, they developed a risk, 4 times the risk of developing cognitive deterioration. So elderly people, so as you get older, if you eat more saturated fat, you just increase your chance of becoming dumber and losing your mind by 4 times compared to those who ate low amounts of saturated fats, right? So you're probably thinking, so how much saturated fat is that? I'm going to give you 2 studies, right? This first study, they found that people who ate more than 25 milligrams of saturated fat per day, right? You get 4 times the risk of developing dementia, right? Dementia, Alzheimer's, has very little to do with genetics. It has a lot to do with your diet and your lifestyle. So if you're eating more than 25 milligrams of saturated fats And I'm going to go over what saturated fats are, right? But I just want to give you the data first. If you ate more than 25 milligrams of saturated fat per day, you have a 4 times chance of getting dumber and losing your mind, right? What is 25 milligrams of fat, right? 25 milligrams of fat is 6 slices of bacon. So compared to people who eat more than 25 milligrams of saturated fat, compared to people who ate half of that, only 13 grams, right? So people who ate 13 grams compared to 25 milligrams, right? Right? 20 people who ate more than 25 milligrams of saturated fat, 4 times the chance of becoming dumber and losing your mind. So again, 25 milligrams is 6 slices of bacon per day, right? I'm not telling you to eat 6 slices of bacon. I'm just telling you that's equivalent to 25 milligrams of saturated fats. Now, another study, the first study was 800 elderly people. This is now 6,000 elderly people. They show that those who ate 13 grams of saturated fat were 2 times or twice more likely to develop cognitive impairment compared to those who ate less than 7 grams of saturated fat per day. So now, the first studies show the difference between someone who ate more than 24 grams versus 13 grams, right? You have 4 times the chance. Now, even with 13 grams compared to less than 7 grams, you're still double the chance of becoming dumber and losing your brain, right? So what is 7 grams per day of saturated fats? That's 1.5 slice of bacon per day, right? So less than 1.5 slice of bacon per day. So those are the facts. Those are the facts. And, that's what I'm telling you. There is zero benefit to eating saturated fats. You got to take it out of your diet. Your brain either produces it or doesn't need it. It doesn't need it actually after, it needs saturated fats the most when you are growing and your brain's developing. But once you pass teenager, your brains have stopped growing, right? Now they can create neural connections. That's different, right? Neuroplasticity, that's different. So what are the sources of saturated fats? When I say saturated fats, right, what should you do? Well, let me come back to what is the recommendation? Here's a recommendation. If you want to get smarter and not lose your memory, not lose your ability to think quickly as you get older, here's the recommendation for maximum performance of your brain. Eat less than 7 grams of saturated fat per day. The equivalent is less than 1 slice of bacon per day. Half a slice of bacon per day is okay, right? So what are other sources? So what are good sources of saturated fats, right? Fresh organic fatty foods are much better than processed of any kind, right? So what are organic? Organic free-range eggs, chicken, turkey, lean grass-fed cuts of meat, organic whole milk, yogurt without added sugar, kefir. These are good sources of saturated fats, right? So as you can see, without even trying, you are getting saturated fats. Don't intentionally go and try to eat saturated fats. Trust me, you're going to get it in your daily diet without even trying, okay? So these are the betters to eat. If you were to choose, this is like pick your poison. These are the better poisons, right? The organic free-range chickens, eggs, turkey, lean grass-fed, okay? Now, what do you want to avoid? You want to avoid everything processed. What is processed? I'll go on that when I go to trans fat, because processed foods all contain trans fats. All right, so processed meats like slices of ham, pastrami, and all those things. Eliminate from your diet American cheese, okay? String cheese, sweetened yogurt, commercial ice cream, pudding, and most milk beverages. Avoid those. Those are high in saturated fats, okay? So again, more than 7 grams of saturated fat per day. If you eat more than 7 grams of saturated fat per day, you are already getting dumber every day. That is the result. And you are losing your brain cells. You're losing your mind every day. You're losing your memory every day. You're becoming less and less sharp every day. when you eat more than 7 grams of saturated fat. Okay. Next, the ugly trans fats. What are trans fats? Trans fats are trans saturated fats. Let me know if this information is good for you, right? Is it making sense? Is it helping you? Let me know in the comments, okay? So trans saturated fats, aka are trans fats. These trans fats are man-made fats. They're not natural. Trans fats, they're not natural. That's why you should eat 0 of this. Again, if you eat here in the US, you get trans fats even without even trying. If you're in Europe and Asia, you don't get as much trans fats. And actually anywhere else in the world, you don't get as much trans fats. But here in the US, you get it everywhere. You get it every day, even without trying, right? Unless you cook yourself and you use natural ingredients every single day. But otherwise, you're getting trans fats every single day. Trans fats was created by an industrial process called hydrogenation. So remember, saturated fats, right? They're hydrogenated, right? So trans fats are taking unsaturated fats and artificially hydrogenating them, okay? They're saturating them. That's the more correct term. So what does that mean? Trans fats are created by industrial process through hydrogenation, which means they add hydrogen to healthy. So they take a healthy unsaturated fat and they make it unhealthy. That's what trans fats are, right? We commonly see this in vegetable oils. Why did the industry do this, right? I did a social media post about cooking with vegetable, these seed oils, right? These vegetable oils, and they're just like cooking like engine oils. And then Meta censored me and said that my data was incorrect. That I was sharing incorrect, unscientifically based information, which is weird because the research center, for Alzheimer's prevention, right? And in one of the New York's medical school, one of the scientists, this is where I'm getting this information. They found the exact same thing. That's where I'm getting the information. So, the Rockefeller and Corporation, they started creating these hydrogenated fats, right? Hydrogenated fats make unhealthy fats into healthy fats into unhealthy fats. Now, why do they do that? Because they wanted to create consistency in products that's sold at room temperature, but melts, it's solid at room temperature, but melts, that's almost nearly solid at room temperature and melts upon baking or heating. Canola oil, safflower oil are artificially hydrogenated to create margarine and soft spreads. All margarine and soft spreads are terrible for you, okay? They kill you. There's 0 benefit. If I can make this even more clear than usual, they are killing you. Now, these partially hydrogenated oils are less likely to spoil and less prone to rancidity, probably mispronouncing that word, and granting foods a longer shelf life. That is the reason why the Rockefeller organization created these hydrogenated oils called trans fats, because they can stay on your shelf longer, right? And they don't go bad. They can stay on your shelf forever, probably 100 years, right? Okay, I'm making that up. Some restaurants use these oils in their deep fryers. Why? Because then they don't have to change the oils so frequently, right? And so because if it's healthy oils, the healthy oils go bad after you use it. So you have to replenish it every single day. But with these man-made oils, these trans fats, restaurants don't have to change them out. They can use the same oil. They use call it 1,000-year oil, right? And trans fats are convenient and they're cheaper. So yes, trans fats were made to make money. They're cheaper, right? They have zero benefits. So the Rockefeller organization probably knew, I'm guessing, don't know for a fact, okay? Whoever created these trans fats, they knew that there's 0 benefit to the human body. In fact, not only is there benefit, it actually kills the body. It actually makes you unhealthy. So if it makes you unhealthy, guess what? You need to go to the doctor. You need to get pills. You need to get medication. So they found, the organizations behind this, they found because you don't make money from healthy people. You make money from sick people. So how can we make them sicker? We start by the food. We start by changing their food. We start by getting them to eat artificially made food that is no longer food. So we make these trans fats that are taking healthy oils, vegetable oils, and making them unhealthy. And not only unhealthy, they're making the population dumber and just giving more heart disease, more diabetes. And so guess what? Now those people need more medications, because now you've created a disease that you say is incurable. So now these patients that you created need to be taking medications for the rest of their life, right? So that's just it's a great, I would say, business process. It's for profit, but of course it's terrible for the humankind. So trans fats, it takes very little trans fats in your diet to develop cognitive impairments. Very little. It takes very little. So you're probably saying, what's little, right? 2 grams. Just 2 grams per day of trans fat already impairs your cognitive abilities. It makes you dumber, makes you stupider, makes you lose your mind. Just 2 grams of trans fats every day, right? So most people here in the US are eating more than 2 grams per day. Why? Because we're trans fats. Trans fats. Well, let me finish this up before I go to trans fats. The sources. Trans fats raises cholesterol, raises your triglycerides levels, and promotes global inflammation throughout your body. It makes you more inflamed. That's why I said it gives you heart disease. So the more trans fats you eat, the more your arteries going to clog, the more dumber you're going to get, the higher the chance you're going to get dementia, Alzheimer's, and diabetes, right? Partially hydrogenated oils are no longer classified as generally recognized as safe. GRAS. This is what it stands for. GRAS. When you hear of GRAS, generally recognized as safe in human food. Partially hydrogenated food is no longer generally recognized as safe in human food. And that's why countries like Denmark, Switzerland, and Canada have reduced and even restricted the use of trans fats in food service establishments. Here in the US, it's encouraged, right? So now come to sources. Sources. This is what I'm telling you. You don't have to try. You don't even have to try to get trans fat. And I guarantee you are getting 2 grams of trans fat almost every day. If you eat out, you're getting more than 2 grams. So which foods? Almost all foods, all processed foods have trans fats. So what are processed foods? Processed foods are any food packaged in a box, a can, or a bag. And they have a very long shelf life. Like some canned soups have up to 4 years of a shelf life. Canned foods, canned soup. Can you imagine that? A canned soup, you cook a soup and you leave it for 4 years and you still drink it later, right? It makes no sense. That's what trans fats do. So packaged foods, if you have a longest shelf life, they have trans fats. Anything like, the traditional, if you go to Asia, and I'm pretty sure Europe, but I know for certain Asia, people go grocery shopping every day, right? They go grocery shopping every day, every other day, at least minimum once a week. And why is that? Because food goes bad. Normal food goes bad if you keep it, even in the refrigerator. Refrigerator was an invention to help, but even with the refrigerator, food goes bad. So after a week, if your food can last for 2 or 3 weeks, it ain't food anymore, right? It's definitely got trans fat. So another way you can determine how much trans fats are in your food is in nutrition label. So if anything is boxed, it has a nutrition label, right? But again, the powers that control the food industry, big food, They figured out a way to hide it from you, right? Because their regulations, they loosen the regulations. They require food companies only to report trans fat if there is 0.5 milligrams of trans fat of serving, more than 0.5. If it's less than 0.5, then food companies are allowed to say there is 0 grams of trans fat. So if a food company produces a product and it has 0.49 grams of trans fat, they, by law, can say they have 0 grams. So if they have 0.49, they can say they have 0 grams, right? So again, whoever's controlling the big food is causing the health crisis in our country. The bottom line, the more packaged and processed food you eat on a regular basis, the more hidden fats you are consuming. So watch out for hydrogenated fats, partially hydrogenated fats, oils. They're known as PHO, partially hydrogenated oils, vegetable shortenings or just shortenings in general. These are trans fats. What are the most common PHO, partially hydrogenated oils? Soybean oil, cottonseed oil, palm kernel oil, and vegetable oil. And if you love baked goods, you're getting hydrogenated fat. If you love baked goods, you're not only making yourself dumber, and you are also putting yourself closer to the grave faster. So what are baked goods? Donuts, cakes, pie crust, pizza, frozen pizza, biscuits, cookies, crackers, all margarine, even coffee creamers. You got to read those, right? All of those things make you dumber faster. They make you lose your mind faster. So quit blaming it on genetics. It's what you're putting in your mouth. Now, one responsibility is, yes, the powers to be created these fake food to make us sick. Yes, they did wrong, and shame on them, right? But, fool me once, shame on them. Fool me twice, shame on me. I think you probably heard that, right? Let me repeat that. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So fool me once, that's the powers to be created these fake food to poison the human body so that they could cause disease that didn't exist before. Did you realize? People say, "Oh, we have diseases that we didn't have 3,000 years ago." Well, yeah, because we didn't have fake food 3,000 years ago, right? We didn't have processed food. Many of these chronic diseases that we have today are produced by us. We created them. So the powers to be, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you. So the powers to be fooled us. They made these fake food. But now this information is out. I'm not the only person. Congress has they collected a group of people that are finding out that the big food industry and the big farm industry are corrupt. I mean, surprise! And their goal is to make us sicker, right? Like Dr. Casey Means, her brother Callie Means, who was a lobbyist for Big Pharma. He spilled the beans, He was a whistleblower. He's whistleblowing right now about all the Big Pharma's doing. They're making fake food to make us sick so that we get to take their medications, right? So fool me once, shame on you. So shame on them for creating these fake food to make us sicker. But now that you have, and you're hearing this from me, you're hearing that these are fake food. Why do you keep on eating them? Fool me twice, shame on me. So we got to take responsibility. We got to take responsibility for stop falling to their plan. Every time you eat more of these trans fats, you're following into their plan, and you're going to become, you're joining their assembly line. You're joining their assembly line. The assembly line is eat their fake food, get sick, so you got to take their medications for the rest of your life, right? So fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So we got to take accountability on that as well. Okay. So hopefully this helps. Yeah. Coconut oil. Coconut oil is good, right? Coconut oil is good. So I did a post on that. So yes, definitely coconut oil is good. However, also in limited quantities, right? So just because coconut oil is good, it doesn't make it, you should be eating it like crazy, right? because coconut oil has this ingredient. I'm going to mispronounce it. It's myristic acid. I'm probably mispronouncing it, right? Myristic acid. Coconut oil is a saturated fat. Whole milk is a saturated fat, right? So in limited quantities. But again, so going back to my earlier part of this podcast, I said, you don't need to work on getting saturated fats. You are naturally getting saturated fats in your diet. Okay? You're just naturally getting it. So don't work on it. What you need to work on are the unsaturated fats. And what you need to work on is in my previous podcast, I talked about the essential fats, the fats your brain actually needs. That's what's going to make you smarter. These saturated fats, they're going to make you dumber. So you need to work on getting the essential fats. The essential fats. That's what your brain craves. That's what your brain needs to craves, right? And that's what your brain cannot make. Essential fats are fats your brain cannot make. Essential fats, non-essential fats are your brain can make or doesn't need anymore, right? So non-essential fats are these saturated fats. All right, guys, hopefully that was beneficial. Thank you for commenting, Linda. Appreciate you watching. Again, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. We're going to continue with this podcast. We're going to finish the fats, and then we're going to go on to other nutrients that you need in order to live a restorative longevity life. All right. See you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. It is Sunday. See you Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. All right, guys. See you then.
This episode is sponsored by Achieve Integrative Health, the #1 acupuncture clinic in the US. We're grateful for their support in helping us bring you the Restorative Longevity podcast.